I just wanted to do a short video to show how I go about stuffing and finishing the Annie doll. The thing to watch out for when you're stuffing her face and head is just trying to get this seam here, the one that runs along the bottom of the face, as smooth as possible. A nice smooth and even finish to it, because it is prone to just wrinkling a little bit along this curved seam. You can see here. So we just want to smooth that out as much as possible. So I'll move these out of the way, and I'm just going to show now the method, the tips and tricks I use to just get that seam nice and smooth. So this one has had all the machine sewing finished and it's ready to be stuffed. So before turning it the right way out, what I'm going to do first of all, if you can see already along this seam, it was instructed in the pattern booklet to clip V-shaped notches in this area of the seam at the bottom of the face. So I can just feel the bottom of the ear here and here on either side. You just want to clip from under ear, taking care not to catch the ears, clip all the way around. And that just removes some of the fabric so that when it's turned the right way out, some of the bulk from this fabric is taken out of the way, and that will help reduce the chances of it wrinkling or puckering at all along that seam. And then before turning it the right way out, the first thing I do is I just open up this seam and just give it a little finger press, just so I can feel the stitching. And this helps to find the stitching when we stuff it, to stuff all the way down to the stitching and really round out that seam. So it is worth just taking a minute or two. It's a little bit fiddly, just to go round and carefully, see if I can open this one, push and finger press those seams open. They're unlikely to stay open when you turn it the right way out, but just the fact that we've opened it to the stitching will help refine that stitching when we're stuffing it in a moment. Okay, so I'm going to turn it the right way out now. Just gently ease the hair out first. Ooh. We don't want to rip any of the stitching, it's a bit delicate. So the hair's out, and I'm just very gently going to ease the rest of the face out. There we go. And then when we begin stitching, start at the top of the head and work down the face. So I'm going to be quite forceful and really push the stuffing into the seams. I want to really round out this shape and give her a nice round face. The opening to stuff the doll is in the back here. This is all in the instructions. So I'm going to take some stuffing, and for this I'm not going to use a tool because the fabric is a little bit more delicate with it being cotton around the bottom of the face. I just want to make sure there's no chance. I can feel my way with my fingertips and know that I'm not going to push anything through the seam and rip the seam. The face, I put plenty of stuffing in the face. I really stuff it quite firmly so that I get all the shapes and the nice roundness that I want. Whereas the body, I'll stuff much more lightly because that bit you want to be a little bit more cuddly. It's not as important. It doesn't have quite this, it's not as sophisticated shape-wise as the face. The body's a little bit more, it's just not as sophisticated. There we go. So I'm going to push all the stuffing really into these seams as well as I can, just to push it right up into the top, and I'm going to work down the face. It does take a while, and it takes a lot of stuffing as well. The face part is interfaced, so this section of the face is interfaced, whereas the neck bit isn't, which also adds, the interfacing also stops it from rounding out quite as easily as it would if it wasn't. But I have a little trick in a minute to get a nice smooth finish so it looks nice and even. I just want the stuffing to be nice and fluffy. I'm just going to separate it a little bit before I pop it in. So I'm making sure I'm stuffing the back of the head, and then I'm going to work down the face now. So really pushing the stuffing into the seam to find the round shape. There we go. Right, the top sort of 2/3 now are really well stuffed. So now I'm going to concentrate on stuffing the bottom part of the seam. So I'm just going to really push the stuffing into the seam. Actually, it's looking quite smooth already. Doesn't look too bad at all, that. And now I'm going to put some stuffing to the back of the head, which, and pushing this in will hold the stuffing that's been pushed into the front of the face. There we go. So a little bit more in the back of the head, and that's the head stuffed. And now before I go on and stuff the body, just a little trick just to make sure this seam is nice and smooth. I think it needs a little bit more. Hang on a minute. I will now, using a pressing cloth, and push your fingers. I'm going to push my fingers in here to fill out the seam, but there is plenty of stuffing in between my fingers and the seam still. I have to swap because I'm right-handed. So I've pushed the stuffing in, and I'm holding this seam now nice and taut. This is not suitable for children to do. This is definitely an adult's job. Push the stuffing to the seam. Make sure there's plenty of stuffing to protect your fingers. And then I'm going to pop a little pressing cloth over the seam here. And then I think of it as if you were doing a shoulder seam around a ham, but we're using the stuffing to help us here. And then just very gently just press with an iron along this seam. Let's have a look at this. So it smoothed that out really nicely. And just carry on around the seam like that. Use a pressing cloth again because I don't want to damage the face in any way. So the iron is not on its hottest setting. It's quite sort of a medium iron. There we go. And then this side is a little bit more wrinkly. You might need a little bit more stuffing pushing in. So again, I push the stuffing to the seam to keep it nice and taut. Pressing cloth over the top. And just give that a nice gentle press, taking care to avoid the hair. You don't want to catch. The pressing cloth helps to stop the iron catching the hair as well. But this is definitely one for an adult to do. There we go. So as you can see there, it really does smooth off the bottom of the face and give it a nice smooth finish. So I'll move the iron out of the way. And now I'm just going to stuff the rest of the body, which it's much more, it's easier to stuff because the opening's in the body, but also it requires much less stuffing. It's a much easier job to do, this one. So I'm just going to start by pushing stuffing first into the bottom of the body. I mean, literally into the bottom. There we go. And also up to the shoulders. Bit of thread in there. The body, as I said before, a lot less stuffing. You know, it's a nice, sort of soft, a more cuddly body. With that as well, it also makes adding, you know, fitting clothing a little bit easier if the body's a little bit more malleable. So I'm just going to add this in. She doesn't need much more now. Again, just pushing it into the seams to make sure she's nicely filled out. And then I think just a tiny bit more in the back now. And she's done. Just gently ease some up to the shoulder area. Some in the sides. This stuffing gets everywhere. It's not my favourite. There we go. And if you feel that the head maybe feels a little bit top heavy, you think, oh, actually, maybe I put a little bit too much stuffing in the head, you can always just ease some down with your finger into the body cavity. Give it a bit of a squidge. I think that's quite a nice amount of filling in her face. I think she needs a little bit more around here just to make sure she can hold her arms up nicely. She's not too crinkly around the shoulders. And there we go. She's got a nice soft body now. Slightly firmer face. I'll have to clear all these fluffy bits of stuffing off. But there we go. She's done. And then last job is to just, with ladder stitch or whichever stitch you prefer, just to hand sew this opening in the back of the body closed. And there you go. She's done. Because her face was embroidered on at the start, she's all done really. There we go. And as you can see, this seam, if I do a close up here, is nice and smooth. Just giving it a little press. Just thinking of it as a shoulder seam on a garment, something like that. Just press it as smooth as possible. And it gives her a lovely finish. There we go. I hope that's of some help.